Chuckle Linnick. I'm a reenactor. And for 36 years, I used living history in the classroom to try to bring history to life for my students and to lure them into the subject and to make it less scary and less dull and not as dead as the people we were studying. And to that end, I would dress for the different time periods in the garb that was appropriate. I would have the music playing in the background and a now playing board up so my kids learned music, even though it was a history class. I would bring in artifacts. Basically, if you want to impress people and you're a teacher, you call these realia or manipulatives, but really what it is the way a colleague of mine described what I was doing. It was a kid-friendly museum where kids could touch things. And I understand that because that was my problem as a child and still as an adult in museums, is I want to touch. And this allowed kids to kind of connect with the subject. But I'm not in the classroom anymore. So what I'm doing is I'm repurposing myself because I have an entire room at the house filled to capacity with garb from different time periods. I have a passion for bringing the past alive. That's why I was a teacher. That's also why I'm involved with historical reenactment on the weekends. And I'm trying to preserve landmarks because I've been seeing landmarks go away, and I'm aware of even more of them going away once I began this project. I like to play amateur archaeologist, amateur anthropologist. I like to play history detective. So what I'm doing today is I am returning to Mission San Jose because I talked too much and I didn't finish what I was supposed to do. So I'm going to be going back there to talk about it in garb, tell the tale of the place. So I hope you stick with me on my journey. Within a couple of years, there had already been a division of labor taking place. Padre Barcenia would handle the spiritual matters. Padre Marina would handle construction, basically the heavy lifting. But in time, Padre Barcenia's health began to fail, and a new Padre Uria, was assigned to the mission, and he was there at first to assist, and later, when Padre Barcenia retired due to his poor health, Padre Uria took over, and it would be he who would make the push in 1805 to begin building a large adobe mission. And he would be kind of a firebrand as far as getting things done. It took 4 years to complete the adobe chapel, which measured 135 feet long by 30 feet wide and initially had a Thule reed roof. Lieutenant Saul in the 1795 expedition mapped out sites for raw building materials, so it was relatively easy to gather them together. And the bricks themselves, 22 inches long by 11 inches wide by 5 inches tall, each weighed 60 pounds, and the walls were 8 feet thick. 1806 was a pretty eventful year. There were a large number of earthquakes in the San Francisco area, which did damage to many of the missions, and that caused the Padres to rethink just how high the bell tower ought to be. They decided at that point, let's make it about as high as the roof line so that it'll be a bit stronger. Also in that same year, 2 new Padres were assigned to Mission San Jose. Padre Buenaventura Fortuny and Padre Narcisco Duran. And between the two of them, they really ended up pushing teaching various skills to the neophytes, such as candle making and soap making and paint making and leather working and carpentry and the sorts of things that were done at missions, but they ended up teaching these to such an extent that Mission San Jose was able to use a lot of these as trade items to get other things they needed. Also, Padre Duran would end up starting a neophyte orchestra and a neophyte choir here, and he would use color-coded notes to teach the neophytes their various parts. Not being satisfied with any of the maps that I saw of Mission San Jose, I had to look at several of them and, quite frankly, take the features that I liked from each of those maps and try to put them into one. And the map you're looking at shows that everything in black, that's what exists today. And what we're going to look at first is the convento, which was one side of the quadrangle, and right now that's where the museum is. But this is where the Padres would have lived. But if you go to the end of the convento building, there's an area that's marked out with logs and gravel, and this marks out some rooms that used to exist. Inside the quadrangle would have been the patio, and I've got one shot in there which shows you the patio, but Mission San Jose is kind of unusual. I'd never seen this before. There is the possibility that there was a second quadrangle and that it would have began at the back end of the chapel. That would have been one corner of it. I've marked out the neophytes' quarters in orange on the map, and if you go near the Mission Creek, there's a sweat lodge and an aqueduct, and the aqueduct would have been to feed the vineyards. And there's something else that's kind of unusual here. If you take a look, there is a blue line that's kind of squiggly and a circle. Okay, the circle's supposed to represent the lavanderia. The blue line on a map from Mission San Jose states that this is a warm water aqueduct. And maybe that implies hot springs nearby. It's an interesting idea because I'd never heard of the idea of bringing in warm water by way of aqueducts. Orchards were located to the south and to the east of Mission San Jose, and this is where the real wealth of the mission was coming from. In the 1800s, before secularization, Mission San Jose was an agricultural and livestock powerhouse. Easily the most prosperous of the missions, of the northern missions, besides producing barley and corn and other grains. And there were orchards of fruit trees around. The mission came in second as to the quantity and quality of olive oil that was produced. There was a vineyard a very short distance away from the mission, and not just with the agricultural stuff, hands down, the mission is exceeding goals. But then there's also the livestock. While the mission was at first granted like 500 head of cattle from Mission Santa Clara and a flock of sheep, that very quickly grew to like 11,000 head of cattle, 11,000 sheep, similar numbers for horses, and with all the other things being produced, plus what the mission industries were creating as far as candles and soap and paint and other products, the mission actually bought a boat and would sail across San Francisco Bay to meet with ocean-going ships to conduct business. So it's a real powerhouse. When Mission San Jose was first established, the Ohlone population in the area stood at around 10,000, according to some estimates. By the time of secularization, the population had dropped to 2,000 that were within the area. And one of the big causes was European diseases. In 1805 and 6, during the construction of the large adobe chapel, an epidemic of smallpox and measles broke out, which killed many of the Ohlone. One of the visitors to Mission San Jose we've run into earlier when talking about the missions. Jedidiah Strong Smith was a mountain man and explorer, and in 1826 he first showed up in Alta California over at the Asistencia San Bernardino. Asked where there were people of importance, and the folks pointed west to San Gabriel Mission. And Jedidiah's partner, who spoke Spanish, convinced a rancher to loan them some horses, and they set off to the west. And they stopped at the Cienega, the Mud Springs, then what will later become San Dimas, camped there, and then made the rest of the journey to Mission San Gabriel, where they were greeted warmly. They were welcomed. The governor of Alta California, however, did not view this as a good thing, and he had them arrested and brought to San Diego to stand trial, because he's viewed as a spy. And one of the things that will end up happening is those Yankee traders we were talking about, the sailors, they interceded on his behalf. And so it was agreed Jedidiah would get to leave. He would get to go home, provided he went the way he came. Well, Mr. Smith interpreted that very, very loosely. He traveled back to Mission San Gabriel, traveled east along the Cucamonga Road, and then pushed on. And when he reached the Asistencia, he felt that he had lived up to the terms of the agreement, because he did head back in the direction he had come into Alta California. He just decided that at the Asistencia he would just turn left and head towards the north. Now, Smith would later return and do almost exactly the same thing. He visited the Asistencia San Bernardino, and he traveled to Mission San Gabriel again, and he was greeted warmly again. And this time he went north. And people hear that Smith is traveling around. He's gone to Monterey, he's gone to a number of places, and at Mission San Jose, Padre Duran has him held for the governor. The governor arrests him again. He's considering being a lot more strict about things, and yet again American sea captains spoke to him about, hey, come on, let this guy go. Here, we'll give you some money, give you a bond, he'll go away. And again, Smith was released and left Alta California. Did it again. I gotta come back to Mission San Jose. Hope you stick with me.